I don't know.
I don't know what
how
to feel about that.
I don't know
at
what
all.
to say.
So that's why a lot of Korean couples, they're not gonna walk in this road at all.
That's so crazy. So this guy was riding the subway in Seoul with dead bodies in a bag. It is, oh my God. Good evening, guys.
Good evening or good night?
Good night. No, good evening. I think. Good night. Well, anyway, so tonight we're gonna do something very unique to Seoul, and it's called the Dark Night.
The dark side.
The dark side of Seoul. They bring you to different haunted locations throughout the city. I'm really excited to see this. So the first start out, it's 8 p.m. and we are in what district?
So right now we are in Seoul, Daemun, guys.
So it's 8 p.m. and we're in Seoul in Seoul, South Korea, and things are hopefully gonna get quite strange.
Very interesting.
It's really, really interesting to see how vivid superstition is in the Asian culture, specifically the Korean culture.
Yeah.
And when the government built their first public transportation system, they built a tram.
Yeah, because that is something people believe, that if you have the tram, it's kind of like bring the country to the modern era.
Yeah. So when they built the tram, a lot of people were very, very pissed off about it because they thought that it was going to disturb the dragon under the ground, thus causing disturbance in the water. When they built it, it actually was a drought for 2 months after it was built. So I don't know. It's just very coincidental. But they believed in 1899 that there was a dragon living under the city, and the dragon had controlled all the water that came into the city. So as we walk into this palace, they've had actual people that are supposed to be able to communicate with ghosts, like psychics kind of. I don't know if it's actually called psychics. Well, anyway, people that are supposed to be able to communicate with ghosts have taken the tour because of the name of the tour. And one of them actually stopped, like a year ago, one of them actually stopped the tour and was like, and then a year went by and another lady had actually said the same exact thing.
They also both said that this ghost stops here at these stone steps when we do. And she's just listening to us. She's wondering why we're here, and she's wondering when we're going to leave. She's worried that we're going to become trapped here, just like she is. She desperately wants to leave, but she can't. She's also worried that we're going to go up these steps. According to the clairvoyance, the ghost herself never goes up these steps because she's afraid of what's on the other side of the gate. So she's begging with us to leave the palace grounds and not go up these steps.
And to some certain point, when I walk past the palace, I suddenly feel cold. And I don't know how it is in South Korea, but in Thailand, when the temperature suddenly change, like you feel the sudden heat of the cold weather, the sudden heat of the hot weather, it means that there is some spirit there. But I don't know what's going on. It might be just the temperature suddenly change. Very, very interesting, guy. We just came from Taiwan straight to South Korea. When we were in Taiwan, it was a ghost month, and our friend told us that don't respond to anybody that, like, not to anybody.
Don't go to anybody that calls your name from behind you.
Yeah, something like that. There's the same belief in South Korea as well, that if you hear somebody call your name, don't just respond to it at night. Otherwise,
you'll be killed.
You'll be killed by the ghost.
So normally throughout Asia, you always have a problem with taxi scams. That's like a big thing in Asia, where like the taxi driver will say the meter's broken or something. Well, our guide actually had a friend that got in a fake taxi thinking it was a real taxi and was locked in the car, and the taxi driver got on the highway and was driving on the highway. Now she didn't know what to do or how she was going to get out of this situation. She told the driver multiple times that, you know, you're not going to my house, you're not going the right way, you're not going the right way. Boyfriend texted her on the phone and said, you know, you need to get out of the car when you have to stop. Thankfully, when they pulled up to a red light, there was a police car in the front, and there was a car behind the taxi. So she rolled down the window, screamed, "Help, help, help." Well, the police heard her, got out, asked her what happened. She had told the police that the taxi driver wasn't driving where he was supposed to be driving, and she needed help. So the police said, okay, we have enough right to search the car. When they searched the car, they found a dead 20-year-old that had been killed a couple hours prior.
In Seoul, you may have noticed that all taxis, generally all taxis, are the same model of car. So it doesn't matter what company they're from or if they're private cars, they're all the same model. So all this guy did was get a model of car that is the one that has to be used by taxi drivers. He did it up, made a fake sign, and used it as bait to get victims. He got one, and he almost got two. So as a result of this, the Korean government made it a little bit more difficult to get taxi licenses and made it easier for people to tell whether taxis were real or not.
I don't know.
I don't know what
how
to
to
feel about that.
I don't know
at
what to
all.
say. So actually 5 months ago was when this all ended. So that story that I just told you about the taxi driver, well, the Korean government used to take prisoners that were rapists, murderers, and all prisoners really, and they used to give them taxi jobs to be drivers and delivery men. So they had your address, they were driving you around and alone with you in a taxi cab, but this is how the Korean government basically brought them back into society. You know, they still have to pay taxes, they have to survive still, but I can't believe they were giving them jobs, working directly with people, giving them the worst information, knowing if you're home alone, if you live with anybody, your address, all this really, really bad information. And 5 months ago is when they changed this law and they actually stopped, you know, prisoners.
Just 5 months ago.
5 months.
Wow.
What? That is crazy.
That's mind-blowing.
So around the same time that that taxi thing was going on, where his friend was actually abducted in a taxi cab, there was actually Seoul's biggest serial killer was actually active. This is in 2003, I think he said.
Yeah.
2003, and it was Young Cho, I believe his name is. But
There's a movie based on his story though, guys, in Korea. It's called The Chaser, and it's based on.
it came out in
his story.
2008, and basically this serial killer would kill two types of people: old men and prostitutes. But they weren't prostitutes like in the red light district, they were from a call service. But he would kill them with a hammer. So when she was in the cab, she actually thought she was in the cab of this serial killer. And he is now in maximum security prison. And they do have the death penalty here in Korea, but it hasn't been active since 1997. So he's in maximum security prison and still alive right now. Probably just reading a book, waiting to get lights out and get put to bed.
So guys, this is the famous area for walking, and it's the stone walkway, and there is a palace there. Is it a palace, Jim?
Yeah.
There is a palace.
It's right next to the
right there.
U.S.
Right next
ambassador's
to
house.
right next to U.S. ambassador house, and there is a rumor about this place for over 200-300 years. The belief in Korea that the couples that walk here will eventually break up. The reason why is because the servants that work here at the palace, they are not allowed to have boyfriend. So when they pass away in virgin, and they in the Korean belief, it's like they die unhappily. So we're gonna miss them. So the thing is, because they die unhappily, they were sad. Every time they see couple walk by this place, they will curse the couple because they get jealous, and in terms of like they don't have a chance to have boyfriend. So that's why a lot of Korean couples, they're not gonna walk in this road at all.
It's really crazy because when the U.S. first was ready to buy property here and they were going to build a relationship with Korea, the U.S. asked, you know, can we buy land from you? And Korea was like, yeah, you can buy land. We'll give you this whole plot of land for super, super cheap. Well, later, come to find out, they sold the land so cheap to the U.S. because it was the burial grounds for the people that they were executing, and they were burying them on the same land that they sold the U.S., that the U.S. ambassador's house is now on. So they were finding beheaded bodies all throughout the property. Now, the last body that was found was in 1995, not that long ago, and they found the body while they were digging a hole to bury a tree. So they say that the US ambassador's house is actually haunted from all the decapitated bodies that were found on the US property now in Korea. It makes me think, when a deal is too good to be true, you might want to second guess it. The US probably should have second guessed that and wondered why it was so cheap.
So we just end the tour here. It's nearby Cheonggyecheon, which is a famous stream that is very a popular spot for young generation couples to come here, have a date and have a beer. It's just a beautiful place to have beer. And for the tour itself, we have learned so much of the history of South Korea that I would say it's just like somebody literally summarized things that going on for over 200, 300 years within 1 hour for me. So every place we stop by, there is a history behind it. Like 200, 300, there's a history behind it. The only things that you will not get from this tour is that you don't actually don't expect to go to the actual place, the actual house, but you literally walk past the road or the area that their situation happened. So I would say that it's kind of like give you a good feeling of the place itself. Just like when we were in my favorite place, my favorite things is actually the palace, the Gyeonghee-gung. That place is my favorite. It's so chill, so peaceful at night.
It's really cool to be able to, have somebody guide you around and tell you the things that you really can't find unless you study that in history and that's your profession. You really can't find many details about ghost stories or murders or, taxi scams that turn to murders. It's crazy to be able to hear these stories and, experience the location firsthand. So.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I forgot to tell you guys as well about this. The thing is he also tell us the up-to-date, the most gruesome things that happened in South Korea. Just last month, that the guy he worked in the motel and he actually murdered a guest. Just happened last month. He literally chopped up each part of the body of the guest, throw it into the river, and
turn himself into
the police. And at that time he just shout into the sky and say that don't be rude. If you be rude again, I'm gonna go kill you again next life. So something's really wrong with him.
So if you guys are interested in the tour and this is something that interests you and you'd want to see, you can check the description box below and we'll link the tour.
So we get beef kimbap. We get how you call this one in Korean?
Chopstick. We call it chopstick.
Chopstick.
Oh, I thought you said chopstick. I was like, not those.
Not chopstick. Chopstick. Chopstick.